this morning we're going to talk about paradise some more and thinking about this idea that we can experience paradise wherever and whenever we are with God. And we asked the question last week, then, where is paradise? Right? It's in the east, in Eden. It's on a hill outside of Jerusalem where Jesus and the thief on the cross were executed together. It's in some Jerusalem-esque location with rivers and two trees in Revelation 22. We asked the question, when is paradise? It's in the past, in the very beginning, the ultimate beginning. It's today, in the now, like today. And it's in the ultimate future, in Revelation 22, in the end of all things that is awaiting us all. And the unifying factor that makes paradise then is the presence of the living God. And yet God is always with us. The Spirit of the living God is alive in me as he is alive in you. And so the question then became, how can we become more aware of the presence of God? How can we become more aware of the paradise that is available to us wherever we go, whenever? And when we looked last week at seeing God's presence in creation and in work. And this morning we're going to think about what it looks like to become aware of God's presence in rest. And so if you would, you can open up with me to Genesis chapter 28. We're going to be starting in verse 10 here in a second. And we're going to be seeing one part of the story of the patriarch Jacob. But as you turn there, it's important that we understand, I think, Jacob's story more broadly before we look at Jacob's story more granularly this morning in Genesis 28. And the story for Jacob, as it does for the rest of us in many ways, it didn't start with Jacob, but it started with Abraham. God called Abraham, then named Abram, in Genesis chapter 12. And it says that God said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you." So Abram went. Abram became Abraham. Abraham had a son named Isaac. Isaac went and met his wife Rebekah. Isaac became a wealthy and powerful figure in the region of Canaan. Isaac had two twin sons, Esau, one named Esau who was born first, and one named Jacob who was born second. Jacob went and he took Esau's birthright, and then Jacob actually tricked Isaac into giving him the blessing that he was supposed to give to Esau. Jacob became the heir to the promise and the blessing that God had given Abraham and had carried through Isaac. Jacob had 12 sons, the most famous of whom is probably Joseph, who he gave the Technicolor dream coat to, right? But Jacob's story, I think, doesn't fit nicely into the boxes that we want the stories of our biblical heroes to fit into. Jacob took Esau's birthright from him. In fact, it says that he traded it for a delicious pot of stew, which I don't know, you can read that portion of Genesis and figure out what that's about, but he trades it to him. Jacob tricked Isaac, into giving him the blessing that Isaac was supposed to give to Esau instead. Jacob was told by his mom, then Rebekah, to flee from Esau, who is rightfully angry, who's had his birthright taken from him, his blessing stolen from him, and he begins to flee, and Isaac, as he flees, gives him a mission. He says, "Go and find yourself a wife who is not a Canaanite." And so he went, he ran, he goes on this mission. And that's where we see this story take up in Genesis chapter 28, starting in verse 10. And actually, I'm just going to do it. Can I invite you, can we stand again as we did last week as we read this passage of scripture, as I read this over us? And this is what it says. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. When he reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There above it stood the Lord, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. Early the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He called that place Bethel, though the city used to be called Luz. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's household, then the Lord will be my God, and this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth. You can grab a seat. And I hope this isn't a spoiler for the rest of the story. Maybe it is. But Jacob, after this encounter, went on. He went to Haran. He found a wife. He actually found two wives. It becomes slightly problematic there. He comes home. He ends up having his 12 sons with 4 different women, his 2 wives and 2 of his female slaves. And in a way, we can say that Jacob completed the mission he had been given by Isaac. Jacob survived the threat that Rebekah had warned him about from Esau. But when did Jacob experience paradise? It was when he reached the nameless, unimportant place some ways into his journey, and he stopped to lay his head on a rock. It was here in the middle of nowhere that Jacob saw God before him. It was here that Jacob learned that God was with him. It was here that Jacob experienced paradise right in front of him. And we, just like Jacob then, can experience the presence of God in rest. We, just like Jacob, can experience paradise in our rest. And I don't think that this should be a surprise for us in any capacity, if we're being honest, right? We talked last week so much about Genesis chapter 2 and the creation account, but you might have noticed we skipped the first 3 verses of Genesis chapter 2, right? In Genesis chapter 2, we get this picture at the very start of the chapter where God has created everything. Ex nihilo, out of nothing, he has made everything. And then it says, thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the 7th day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the 7th day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Right? God created, God worked, and God rested. Rest is built into the design of the created order of the world. And yet, if we're being honest, most of us are terrible at rest. And when we do rest, maybe we have a fleeting moment of rest, we aren't looking for the presence of God around us in that brief moment that we get. I think about Ryan, my wife Ryan, she ran a half marathon in Huntington Beach a few years ago. And it was a slightly rainy day in Huntington Beach. I took the kids down there because I am a sane person and did not run a half marathon. And so I took the kids down there in the stroller, and we stood at the finish line, and we watched person after person after person cross the finish line. And over again, it was incredible. You'd see these people running as hard as they could. They'd get to that little inflatable sort of finish line there at the end. They'd run through. They'd grab a medal from the volunteer, like holding medals out at the end of the race. They'd walk over and they'd get a banana out of the box of bananas so they don't like cramp up in the moment. And then they would all walk to the sand and just trying to like turn around and collapse in the sand, right? Like this universal need, like mission accomplished. Now I will lay down and rest. And I think too often, this is how we think about rest in general. This is how we think about paradise. We imagine that once we cross the finish line, once we get our kids to college or out of the house, once we finish up our work and we retire and we move somewhere tropical with a beautiful beach, then we will rest. Then we will experience paradise. But notice when Jacob experienced paradise, it wasn't at the finish line. It was right in the middle, during the in-between time. Right? He had not gotten away from the threat that Esau posed to him, at least not fully yet. He had not gotten to Haran and found a wife and completed that mission, at least not yet. And it was in this in-between, in the rest, that God said to Jacob, I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. That is the promise Isaac sent Jacob to Haran to secure. That is the promise that God gave to Abraham when he was still Abram in the land of his fathers. And that promise is unconditional. Right? Abraham didn't earn it. God gave it to him. Isaac didn't secure it for Jacob by sending him on a mission. God made it happen. Jacob didn't complete his mission and win the promise for himself. God offered it to him. And yet we worship the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Why? Not because Abraham and Isaac and Jacob were some exceptionally trustworthy figures, but because if God was faithful to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob, he will be faithful to us. Right? We are the heirs of the promise given to each of them. We are the heirs of the promise passed down through Jesus to each of us. We don't have to try to earn it in some way. We already have it. And paradise isn't waiting for you across the finish line. Paradise isn't waiting for you to complete the mission, to finish the work, whatever it is. Paradise is here and now available to you. You just have to stop and experience it. There's this pastor in the UK I've been following for a bit, have been listening to some of his stuff. His name is Al Gordon. And he wrote in his new book, he said that rest is the root of revelation. In an always-on, overstimulated world, boredom is a gift. At the root of Jacob's revelation was rest. If he hadn't stopped at this nameless, unimportant place and laid his head down on a rock, he would have missed out on the revelation that God had for him. He would have missed out on the paradise laid out before him. And I wonder, honestly, how often I have missed out on the revelation of God because I just kept running. How often I missed out on paradise and an awareness of God's presence with me because I just kept going. Because when I realize I just keep going, I don't pay attention to who is with me. I miss out on recognizing that just like Jacob, God has been with me the whole time, and God will continue to be with me the whole time. And it's actually in rest, in stopping to experience this rest, that I experience what does not feel like a gift at the time, but I experience boredom. And in that boredom, I have the opportunity to experience the revelation of God laid out before me. To be aware of God's presence with me. But we have to stop. Rest actually requires us to stop. And I think powerfully to stop and to rest is actually to pour out our faithfulness to God and to trust in God's faithfulness to us. One of my favorite Psalms, Psalm 3, begins with this declaration. The psalmist said, "Lord, how many are my foes? How many rise up against me? Many are saying of me, God will not deliver him. But you, Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, the one who lifts my head high. I call out to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me." I call out to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me. When Jacob laid his head on the rock, he declared his faith that the Lord sustained him. When you stop and you rest, you are declaring your own faith that it is the Lord that sustains you. That it isn't your work, that it isn't your achievement, that it isn't what you do or what you say or what you accomplish that sustains you, but God and God himself. I mean this with all the love in the world, but please hear this for a second. Overworking yourself is not faithfulness. Overworking yourself is faithlessness. You can have a million reasons that you might push yourself to the breaking point at your job or in school, but one of those reasons cannot be your faith in God. You can push yourself because the world tells you that stopping is laziness. You might push yourself because you realize that stopping will actually leave you to face the thoughts and the feelings you want to avoid, because maybe you can't tolerate boredom or handle the silence and the lack of stimulation around you. You can push yourself because you might lose momentum, because other people might think about you differently, because maybe, just maybe, stopping might actually expose the truth that the whole world doesn't rest on your shoulders. You can push yourself because you don't want there to be a barrier to accomplishing your goals, because you care more about what you want to do, about what stopping might cost you than what it might earn you, because you've trained your brain to need something all the time in every moment. There are a million different reasons that you might not stop, but none of them are God. And it doesn't matter if you're a pastor like me, or you're a teacher or an accountant or a volunteer, or you are retired or a stay-at-home parent or a nurse or whatever. If you do not stop and rest, it isn't being faithful, it is being faithless. And I think the challenge for us in so many ways is that when we think about that, we don't know how to stop because we realize we cannot squeeze rest into an already crowded life. Your life is crowded, and you cannot just squeeze rest into what is already full. Some absurd percentage of us have filled every waking moment of every single day with something. You drop your elementary school kids off at 7:55, your middle school kid at 8:02, your high school kid at 8:15. You grab Starbucks on your way to the office and you eat your jalapeno chicken pocket in the car as quickly as you can. You walk into work with a few minutes to spare, but before you even set your stuff down, your boss walks in and asks you a question that takes 20 minutes for you to answer. And after you deal with that, you open your to-do list. You realize you have a meeting in 30 minutes at 10 o'clock. And so by the time that meeting ends, you realize you forgot your lunch at home. And so you drive in your 30-minute window to Chick-fil-A and you get your food. And again, you eat it in your car as fast as you can so you can get back for the next thing you have to do at work. And you finish that thing, whatever it is, and you try to get as much done as you possibly can before you have to leave work and go and get your kids and take them to the dentist. But you realize I'm still technically working from home, right? And so you go and you sit in the tiny little chair in the tiny little corner of the dentist's office and you respond to work emails and you respond to work questions and you try to get work done. And you leave the dentist's office and you take some of the kids home and the other kids to soccer practice and the other kids to basketball. You pick them back up from all those places. You go home. You realize the doctor's been telling you probably need to eat a little better. So you start trying to figure out how you can make dinner in an instant. You're putting everything together and now your kids are fighting in the other room while you're desperately trying to make dinner. And you're realizing I should probably turn dinner into exercise. So you're pacing around your kitchen, trying to do it all at once. Your kids finally at some point go to sleep against however much work that took for you to make happen in the first place. And you sit down at the end of your bed, you think, I'm just going to sit here for a second. I'm going to scroll on my phone for a second. Then I'm going to get back at it and do some things I know I need to do. And next thing you know, it's the morning and you realize you fell asleep. And you do it on Monday, you do it on Tuesday, you do it on Wednesday, you do it on Thursday, you do it on Friday. And then on Saturday, you have sports tournaments and all sorts of other events in your life. And then you come to church on Sunday, and I have the audacity to say to you, you should rest. And you think, when? When do you want me to rest? When do you want me to have a moment to rest? And there's some of you in this room who are thinking quite genuinely, retirement, that's when. It'll be in 3 years. Go ask a retired person how much they rest, okay? They're the busiest people I've ever met in my entire life. When do you rest? And this is the most challenging part for us, I think. Because the reality is you have to stop. You have to stop and make room for rest by saying no to something. Even to something good, it turns out. You cannot throw rest into your schedule in these 15-minute chunks around all the other stuff going on, around your meetings, around your kids' practices, around your pile of laundry that is building up in the corner of your room. You're going to have to take something out of your schedule to put rest into your schedule. And if you don't, you will be stuck. You will just keep going in the always on, overstimulated world where you miss out on paradise, where you miss out on the presence of God around you, where you miss out on the opportunity to say, I lie down and sleep and trust that the Lord sustains me. And this is the invitation this morning. Stop. Lay your head on the rock in the nameless, unimportant place, some ways into your journey. Trust that if you stop, the world will not collapse. It will not fall apart. It will not be ruined because the Lord sustains you. Rest. Rest with God. Allow yourself to become more aware of the presence of God around you. Allow yourself in these moments of living out this trust to experience paradise with God. Allow yourself to receive from God the rest that only He can bring. In Matthew 11:28, Jesus said, He said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." And so what I want us to do this morning as we get ready to close out our time together is I want us to allow Jesus to give us this rest. To allow Jesus in this moment to give us this rest. And so we're going to spend a few moments of our time as we close out together in a sort of imaginative prayer that Ryan helped me write for this morning. A moment for us to rest with God. And so what I want to invite you to do is I want to invite you to close your eyes for a second with me. I want you to start by just inviting God into this moment, into this place, into this time. And then I want you to notice how your body feels right now. How does your body feel right now? Maybe your arms are crossed. Maybe you're clenching your jaw. Maybe you're a little warm. Maybe you're a little cold. And as you notice how your body feels, I want you to go ahead and take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Allow your body to become neutral. Maybe you feel a little more relaxed than a minute ago. And in that moment, I want you to put yourself somewhere that feels like paradise to you. However you imagine paradise to be. What do you notice? What's around you as you look around? Are you on a beach? Are you in a home? Are you out in a park or in nature? Notice the way the sun shines or the light shines. And imagine that that place is perfect. I want you to notice how you feel in that space. Is it warm and comfortable? Does it feel like the sun is shining on you? Is it cool with a nice breeze? Just feel how it feels on your skin. Is it quiet? Is it loud? Is it filled with familiar voices, familiar people that you love being around? Is it birds chirping, people chattering, kids laughing? And as you bring together how you feel and what you see and what you hear in this moment, I want you to absorb it. Allow yourself to rest in this place. But before you do, I want you to invite God to that place with you. Invite God into that place with you. To notice God in this paradise alongside you. Is it more restful? Is it more peaceful? Just sit there for a minute. And in this moment, as you rest in this place, I want you to imagine how even just a moment here could provide you with rest, restorative rest, recharging rest. To be reminded that this rest is always accessible to us if we just let it. So we pray, God, we are weary and we are burdened. Give us your rest. Give us your rest that makes us more aware of your presence. Give us your rest that allows us to experience paradise here and now. God, we pray all this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.